Me quickly go live. Okay, wonderful. I think we are live now. We'll just give it a minute or two before I introduce our host. I don't think he will need introduction, but still, formally, I'll just begin so that a couple of more users join in, and then we will get into introductions, and then we'll start off with the main topic for the day, which is definitely a very, very critical news. Not just for people who have funds in the WazirX ecosystem, but for the overall crypto ecosystem, right? It also creates a lot of precedents. It also creates a lot of scenario that Indian users, we were not ready for all this, right? We never thought such a
Yes.
scenario could be the Indian ecosystem, and we'll discuss all this, during this session. I've definitely have got the very, very right person who's facing things from the front, right? So I think it's going to be a very, very engaging session we're going to have here, guys. And all your questions also do start posting it in. Apart from the questions I'm going to have, I'm also going to pick up some questions from you guys, and I'm going to be asking. So I know there are a lot of apprehensions, a lot of you guys would have. This is one of the ideal sessions you could utilize to solve your apprehensions and also get some advice on how you can also be part of things, right? I think that is also very critical, right? So yeah, let me just take a minute more. I think a lot of users are joining in. Let's just give it a minute more till we start firing up this session, guys. uh, yes, apart from this, I think there are other things which are happening globally as well. Um, Now, since a lot of people are joining in, before I jump in, it's good to see that at least Bitcoin has stabilized in a range. We'll just hope that it reaches much more. Okay, great. Now I've already started questions coming in. Wonderful. So I think it's time to start the session. Thank you, everyone, for joining this session. This is not the usual AMA session that I have weekly. I have a special guest here. I would like to welcome CA Sonu Jain. I'm pretty sure that a lot of you guys who are following things on the WazirX front would definitely know him, right? He is been in the crypto ecosystem. I'll also let him also formally introduce. I've also had him here in one of the sessions earlier where it came on taxation on crypto. We had a very, very
Yes.
engaged, beautiful session where we went into a lot of depths. Thanks for that session as well, Sonu. So now I'll formally invite Sonu Jain to come in, and it'll be great if you introduce you yourself to our users, Sonu.
No, no, thank you. Thank you so much, Vikram. Always happy to be on the Giottus and engage with the Giottus committee, the and then the community that we have built over the years. So very excited to be here. And then again about me, I've been into the crypto space for almost 5 years now. I started my tax practice in 2020. But
Wow.
formally started my crypto journey in 2018. But ever since I completed my CA, been totally doing crypto taxes and legal stuff, helping crypto startups, helping crypto exchanges to get their legal and tax stuff right. Apart from that, among other things, all of us also use various crypto exchanges as users because ultimately we also need to trade somewhere. We also need to, buy and hold our BTC somewhere. And at some point we use and we trust some exchanges which have been there and have established a name. Unfortunately, mishaps do happen, but what matters is how you come back from those mishaps and how you safeguard the trust of the community. So Bybit is one very, very recent example and a very strong one that when you lose $1.5 billion, which is, upwards of 10,000 crore rupees, how do
Yeah.
you still repay the users and ensure the trust is still there? I think a lot of lessons there for some of the exchanges to take, who have been mishandling user funds. But that is what I have been fighting for, as a personally, as a user of that particular platform as well, because ultimately, what should be the outcome is something that should be in users' favor, because ultimately users trusted the platform.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, thanks for that. Yeah. I mean, I will also put in certain things on what you've been doing also, Sonu. So Sonu,
Hmm.
I definitely get it that you had your fund in WazirX. That was one of the biggest reasons where you started fighting. Now it's not just that. I also know that you're also representing a lot of people, right? You're
Right.
representing for a community that is very very critical, right? Can you talk a bit about that, Sonu? Now, how many people are you representing? How does this representation happen?
So effectively, I'm not a Singapore qualified lawyer, Vikram, neither in India also. So formally, I cannot go and represent in Singapore on behalf of 150 people. Instead, what we do is, these 150 people together collect our thoughts, collect our views, and then, we present it as one consolidated document before the Singapore court. So this is something that I started doing ever since the WazirX hearing started in Singapore courts. So at that
Wow.
point of time, I was the only person who was writing to the court and bringing all the facts out. But then over a period of time, a lot of people were part of the movement because they felt that they were being wronged, because effectively exchange which until the day of the hack told you that your funds are your funds and there was a proof of reserve to verify that, on the very next day after the hack tells you that you never owned the funds, it was all our money kept into an unknown company somewhere in Singapore which we never told you about. I mean, obviously that does not set right with anyone. It does not matter if it happens in crypto industry, if it happens in some other industry, because for any relationship, for any sort of commercial transaction, whatever may it be, the primary foundation, whether it is at a personal level or whether it is at a legal level, is trust.
Yeah.
How honest are you in those dealings is what differentiates whether you actually want to do a trade or you're just trying to scam someone. That honesty is what differentiates a genuine transaction from a scam one.
Yeah.
So this is what we found to be lacking in most of the things that were being told into Singapore court. And it's not that these were being told for the first time. World happened in 2022 again through the Singapore court. So there was a sort of a confidence that if world could get through, we are on the same lines. We'll get through as well.
Yeah.
So
On that
ultimately,
particular
but yeah, Vikram.
uh, on that particular point, I think you jumped in. So I'll ask you that main key question, which a lot of our users are happening. What happened yesterday? Why is it a big news, and what happened yesterday?
Absolutely, Vikram. So I think tomorrow's news is a shock to everybody. Personally, I was not expecting that outcome
Mhm.
because of the precedents. But I don't think that the outcome was also expected by the exchange in question. But at a very small background for users as to what happened yesterday and why it happened. It's very important to understand that on May 30th, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, which is Singapore's, sort of like the FIU of Singapore. They take care of registration, licensing, KYC, AML for all crypto exchanges in Singapore. So on May 30th, they put out a document. They say that, hey, if you are a Singapore exchange, without license, you could not serve Singapore citizens, which is okay. But starting from June 30th, thereafter, you cannot serve non-Singapore citizens also.
Mm.
So this came out on May 30th. Now this is very important because Singapore as a country was started to, be used just to, run shallow exchanges across the world and then come to Singapore courts and ask for restructuring. And predominantly based on the information that I have, this has all happened because of crypto exchanges opting to do restructuring in Singapore and Singapore's reputation being called into question. That, hey, look, you are not giving them license, you are not regulating them, but then you are passing restructuring scheme. So when the country's reputation is at stake, that is when MAS stepped in and it told, enough is enough, we don't allow it anymore. This was a very big move from the regulator, because the moment this happens, now the court is stuck, because if you see from a court's perspective, the application that was from WazirX side was for restructuring. Now, in
Yes.
restructuring, what happens is that it is basically a debt settlement. You tell the users that, hey, I owe you 100 rupees, but I don't have the money. At the same time, I want to save my business. So just take this 10 rupees. Here is the court order approving me to pay you 10 rupees, and you don't ask any further questions.
That's
So
why
that
they
is what
call it
happens in a restructuring.
everywhere.
Yes, that's why they call you creditor everywhere, whereas you're not a creditor. So when this happens, when a restructuring happens, you always put the business first, because your intention is to save the business, not to repay the creditors. That may be your second, third, fourth priority, does not matter. First priority is to save the business. Now, because it was a restructuring application, we told the court that, they want to save the business, which is okay. The court may agree to that. We are nobody to tell the court what to accept or not. But one thing the court should consider is that even if you allow them to start a business, they cannot do so, because from June 30th, they do not have a license to operate this exchange.
True that.
So which email we had sent to court on 2nd of June, 2 days before the hearing. And on 3rd of June, court sent a letter to WazirX asking them question that, what is your stand on taking registration in Singapore and taking registration in India? To which WazirX replied to the court on 4th of June, early morning before the hearing. Their statement was, and I will tell you, you will also be shocked. They told the court, we don't want to take a license in Singapore. We are moving everything to Panama, and we
There
don't
was a
even want to take any license in India. No, I mean, the sheer audacity to tell the court which is sanctioning your scheme, a Singapore court sanctioning scheme to a Singapore company based in Singapore, you are telling them, you approve the scheme, thereafter I will go to Panama and I will run my business from there, because I don't want a license from Singapore. So that is what the court felt, that, you somewhere do not have honest intentions, because why would you do that? Why will you not take registration in the country which is approving your restructuring scheme? So I think that
yeah.
was the very first question that the judge asked in the hearing, that have you ever told me about the Panama company? And WazirX told no. But the fact is, the court found a fact that on 10th of March, the company was incorporated by ZI, which is the Singapore company of WazirX. And on 12th of March, they created the scheme document. So scheme document is basically WazirX telling the users of the platform that what will happen if the scheme is approved by the court. So
So
they
it's
had
all
2 days. Yes, the court's question is that you planned everything, but if this regulatory change had not happened, then you would have never told the court. Forget about creators. You are keeping the court in the dark on what are your plans. So that is a big finding by the court, I would say. And it's because in Singapore, everything depends on your reputation and the honesty that you put forward to the court in actually doing what you want to do. But I think that is where they failed. They lied to the court. They concealed some information. I think that was the biggest reason why the court did not agree with whatever they told.
So one quick question on this. So since you've been following the hearings as well, uh, did the court in particular mention that they've been hiding facts?
The court told them that this was never informed to the court, because Panama entity, it was never informed. The court, however, told that, if this regulation had not happened, had WazirX on its own comment told to the court that they will use a Panama entity, the court told no. They would have not told the court. So that's a
Interesting.
very big finding, because the court is effectively telling, you are not telling me also everything. And this is a very, very interesting situation, Vikram, because when the hack happened, after 1 month, users were also told the same thing that, hey, Zanmai has nothing to do with it. It is all being done by Zeta in Singapore. And now the same situation has repeated, but this time they have done it with the court. They told the court that, Zeta is no longer there. Now we are going to Panama. I mean, they have hopped so many countries just to, sort of evade regulations everywhere. It's just astonishing.
Yeah, yeah. So it is like jumping from one country to other where it's a legal trouble there. Now one
Yes.
critical thing to know on this now, if the
Mhm.
funds are going to be moved from ZI, which is a Singapore entity, to the Panama entity, what does now Singapore has to do with this whole case then? That's the ideal thing what the court would have also been thinking. Now, now then is the fight going to happen in Panama? I mean, what are your thoughts there?
So fight cannot happen in Panama, Vikram. Legally, it cannot happen because the Panama entity was just formed right now. The Singapore court made the same finding that you told. They told, when you're claiming to be the owner and now you're saying you are transferring it to someone, why are you even coming before me? So that was also one of the reasons that the court considered. But ultimately, for users, it would just mean that more weight for them. WazirX has, publicly announced that they plan to appeal the decision. But then again, that's a very lengthy process that will take a lot of time.
Yeah. So now following up on this, now what it means is the moratorium period, which is the decision on moratorium, which is the 6th, which is tomorrow, is when the news will be out,
Mhm.
which is more or less going to be not what everyone has expected, right? Now, obviously, this also means that the fight is going to be much longer. Users are not going to be getting the funds anytime sooner. Uh, so, what do you think are the final options which are left for the user now? Does it also mean, since they are not going to get the moratorium, does it open up the cases to be going forward in India? Because they are not going to get that coverage of Singapore.
Yeah, Vikram. So moratorium has already ended. So yesterday, when the court dismissed their application, so the moratorium comes to an end with that. And
Okay.
today, every user in India can file case against Sanmai Zetai, both of them for recovery of their assets.
Okay, that's very interesting, Sonu. So does this? What is your opinion? Do you think that it'll speeden up the access to funds for the users, since it is the Indian codes which will take effect, hopefully? You think that is a good sign or good light?
It all depends on users themselves, Vikram, if you ask me. So, as many users start taking legal action, as many users start writing to their respective Chief Justice of High Court, Chief Justice of Supreme Court, explain to them what is happening, explain to them the exact situation. The moment users start doing all these things is when things will start moving forward because we are dealing with a platform which both the owners are saying they don't own, but
Yeah.
one of them wants to use it to get access to user funds. So even today, WazirX is fighting against the user by using users' fund. So if you see one finding that we had told the Singapore court also is WazirX auditor of Singapore, that is Zetai's auditor, has told in the audit report that Zetai basically is insolvent. They don't have money for their operations. They are down by almost $1 million. That is
Okay.
the balance sheet hole that they have. So now, for a person to think how a company which does not even have money to start its operation is thinking of taking $30 million of user fund to build a DEX. So you are basically not building DEX, you are doing a bailout of your own companies at user expense. So, all of these are facts which are already, with all the users. It is just that users need to bring it out to the, information of the judges because when such situations arise where both the owners don't want to claim the ownership of the platform, it becomes a tricky situation because whom do you sue then? Binance has been telling we have nothing to do. Zetai, the moment you ask them anything about legal, they will tell we don't own it. But if you ask them about money, they will tell it is all our assets. Uh,
Yeah.
So, for such situation, unless the court themselves step in, it will be very difficult situation. Unless users have unhacked tokens, basically if you are holding XRP, BTC, Solana, any of these tokens that were not hacked, you can very much approach the courts and get back your tokens. But for people whose tokens are hacked, majorly many of the ERC20 tokens that got hacked, Ethereum, and most of these tokens, users need to start writing to their respective chief justices of High Court or Supreme Court also. The more users write, the better and quicker justice that we get. Because ultimately, the issue with courts is they are not aware about what is happening. In India, every day you have thousands of things happening. Courts will not keep a tab on what is happening where.
This is not the main problem which is firing up for them, right? How do
Yes,
you make
but
it?
ultimately, can you repeat that, Vikram?
I'm saying this is not the main problem that it is at the top of the mind of courts, right? That they'll have to act.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly, Vikram. And this is all because of perception issues. So if you ask me, in terms of perception is where WazirX is winning and users are losing. Because everyone sees WazirX situation as a consequence of hack. No one sees that there are two parts to this. On 18th of July, hack happened. Now, whether it was a hack or not, we'll not go into that. We'll assume it is a hack. But what happened after that is an actual scam, because only after that you realize there is a Singapore company. Only after that you realized your assets are not your assets. Only after that you realize there is a Panama company. There are so many things that have happened. And on 18 July, FIR was registered by Zanmai, which is an Indian company. 1 month after the hack, Zetai files a FIR in Singapore. I mean, if Zetai is the owner of the asset and you lost half of your asset, which is 250 million, why would you wait 1 month to file a police complaint? It is just, these are all facts which are there already. This
Yeah,
is a clear scam that has happened after 18th of July. So that is
yeah.
the narrative that users have to push, because those 50% of the assets that are left are today worth more than 5,000 crores. So it is basically a 5,000 crore scam.
Yeah, yeah. It's very interesting also part, Sonu, wherein when the user wants funds, it is usually said it is not their fund. But if it has to be used for their legal expenses and everything, it becomes their fund.
Absolutely. So it's a very interesting situation,
Yeah,
Vikram.
it's definitely, the amount of things that gets unearthed every now and then, it is definitely a surprise for a lot of users who are waiting for their funds to get released. Now, that is now even looking way back, right now, this issue of funds not of WazirX or not of Binance started happening from 2021, if I'm not wrong. So from
Yes.
that time,
Hmm.
the conscience was clear, right? There is an issue with the fund holding, and they still went ahead with the operations with that conscience as well, which is also something which is really, really worrying, right?
No,
Yeah,
actually, that is the most interesting phase of this entire in this entire WazirX story, Vikram. Because if you see what has actually happened between the two companies, it is if you ask me, it is straight out of some Disney movie. It's like some movie is going on and we are all part of it, because they tell in 2019 that we sold the exchange. So Nischal Chase, we sold WazirX, and now Binance is the owner. And then Binance says that we want to stop wallet services. Nischal is like, I will take over the wallet services, and they got liminal. I mean, when you sold the exchange, why would you come back and run it just because the owner left it?
yeah,
You sold the asset, the matter is done. You got your money, you sold the exchange, the matter is done. Now, whatever the buyer does with it is his own headache. It's not your headache. You don't need to become God Almighty to come and say that I will run an NGO in the name of WazirX, and then I will continue serving the users. So it was purely Binance call to make. But Nischal taking control of WazirX, running it for almost 1.5 year after taking control, it shows that maybe the sale never happened, like Binance is saying. Because how would you control the wallets? How would you run the platform? How would you do legal registration with FIU after Binance disowning the ownership? because FIU will ask you who is the owner of the platform, and there you cannot give Binance detail because Binance has told we are not the owners. So effectively, WazirX continued to be the owner, but publicly they never told that we are owners of the platform.
Yeah.
So and
And the
and their proposition before Singapore court was even more genius. Their point was we are not the owners, but in users' interest, we want to bring forward this application. So I mean, I at least I don't have such a big heart that I will
yeah.
sell a platform, come back and take over the exchange, run as NGO, and then ask for $30 million to build a DEX. I cannot do that, Vikram.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, you're right. So in a way, when this whole incident had happened and the whole discussion of restructuring and everything was going on, one of the things that I also kept not wanting to happen is WazirX finding a way to release a new token again, right?
Yes,
That is one way of converting what you owe into an equity, right? Now you
yes.
make everyone an equity player and then say that, hey, it did not work out. I don't owe you anything. And so that was something, which is very, very bad to the ecosystem. And
Uh,
doing that again with the funds of the users is even more worrying.
Absolutely. And the worst thing in all of that, Vikram, is that a user will get share of profits only for 3 years.
Yeah,
So a person who does not own the exchange will run the exchange and keep all the profits after 3 years. Uh,
yeah,
I am not sure how that is even logical, but that is what is proposed.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it was a lot one sided. That was clear. And the big worry, what was going in the mind was, are users going to take this bait, right? Are they going to fall for this bait? But it's also heartening to see the legal is playing its role, right, where the right questions are being asked. Now, obviously, we don't know how many more entities are going to be unearthed. Now, when ideally the whole issue of WazirX and Binance is going to get resolved, even. And so, do you also get this feeling that if Binance's role is also spoke very less in this whole thing? They also
Uh,
have a way to do good to the users, right?
Absolutely, Vikram. I think Binance should have been more proactive, especially since their name is being dragged, in almost every application filed before the Singapore court. But I'm not sure why Binance has been, so silent. We have sent multiple emails to Binance legal team also, but their only response to that is that we never took over the platform and we are not part of it. We don't even know why our name is being dragged into all of this conversation.
It's
And
very
they
interesting.
instead then they start threatening us that if you do anything against us, we will have all the rights to recover money from you. It's a pretty catch-22 situation there.
Yeah. It's very interesting. No, majority of growth in WazirX or user acquisition had happened after Binance came in, and the whole promotion was around now you can do things easily because it's acquired by Binance, right?
Yes,
So all the acquisition and the growth happened with the name of Binance and WazirX coming together or being acquired. But post that, it is a different story, right?
true.
It's a surprise for everyone. Whatever is coming out, whatever decisions are being taken. Uh, Now, at least, what are your thoughts on what will be the next steps in this whole saga? Where do you see things playing out? So that we'll also keep users ready for, maybe this could also happen, guys. Be ready.
Absolutely. So, Vikram, what can happen is WazirX has told they will appeal in the Court of Appeals of Singapore or the Supreme Court as they want to. So they will file an appeal against the order and sort of ask the court to overturn the decision and sanction the scheme. However, if that does not happen, then users always have the option of initiating legal proceedings in India. Because based on their communication up until now, it does not look like they even want to look at liquidation as an option, even though there is no owner to the platform, in which case liquidation is the best, option for users. but ultimately they do not want to look at it. So users are left on their own unless they want to still continue the Singapore scheme. So there may be some users who agree with the scheme. Totally, I understand that because of various reasons, users may not want to pursue legal cases in India. But one thing I would like to say is, as many users pursue legal cases in India, it is only going to improve the recovery rates for the users. Because WazirX may tell you you are getting 85%, but I would just ask everyone to do one simple exercise, calculate your today's portfolio value, and then see how much percentage you are actually getting. Because 85 is of 18th July 2024 value, not of today's value. And that will change a lot of perspectives. Because people are only fixated on the point that we'll get 85 back. You are not getting 85 back. If you're a XRP investor, you're not even getting 15% back. So that is a very big shock, and that is one analysis that every investor should today do after watching this video and see how much percentage is he getting. Is he getting 100%? Well and good, you agree with the scheme. If you are getting anything below 70%, you have all the all the tools to go after them in India.
Yeah, that is a very interesting point to note, Sonu. For quite a few users, it could also be that they're getting more than 100% if their assets are returned back as it is.
Uh,
The market
that's
has done.
that's a very interesting scenario, Vikram. You will not get more than 100% also.
Yeah, because it has to be split equally.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's I think I think more than the fund, the lesser funds you're getting, you're not getting the fund, so that you cannot grow that more. That is much more
Yes.
worrying. A market like this, where it's looking good, I think if you have your funds in your hand, you'll be able to, do good to yourself by growing the fund more. Not having access to your own funds and staring at one country to another country for nothing the customer has done. For the customer, it has always been WazirX, which is the Indian entity, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's
And
a
one more thing, Vikram, for users is particularly that most of the users they believe that the assets which they own will not have any tax consequences once WazirX gives you the balance amount.
balance
So
amount.
that is the biggest misconception. So the moment you do a debt settlement with WazirX, the tax triggers to you. So if it is as good as you sold all the assets in your portfolio and you did a settlement with WazirX, at which point, even though WazirX didn't give you 100%, you still end up paying tax on that 100%. So as a user, you also need to consider this. So it is not only about getting access to your money, but it is ensuring you don't pay tax on the money which you didn't receive. So another reason to fight for.
Yeah, I think it leads to more tax complications, and I think a lot of people would also need to understand how you're going to show it in your returns. Uh,
Absolutely. That's another nightmare, Vikram.
yeah, I don't know in what section, what I will write, what is the cost I will write here, what is the inputs I give here. It's a big nightmare, right? That's true. So no, on this whole exercise, right, I was also thinking this through, right? A lot of, not crypto per se, any fintech ecosystem, you would always notice the structure of people usually having a Singapore entity, then an Indian entity, or any external entity. A lot of reasons being for fundraise and things like that. Do you think more such scenarios are there in India in the crypto space, where there could be layers?
There, yes, absolutely. There are many companies which are structured in this way, Vikram. So this is issue not only for the crypto ecosystem, but this is generally a trend across all Indian technology startups. Either people prefer to go with Singapore or they prefer to go with Delaware in US. So they prefer Delaware whenever they have US investors or they are raising money from Y Combinator, because then there is a requirement that you are in US. But Singapore is a very strategic choice that companies make, thinking this exact WazirX scenario in mind. Because getting a clean sheet from Singapore is far more easier than getting it from an Indian court, because Indian court will scrutinize every single thing that you say. Like just to highlight to you, the Singapore proceedings of WazirX came till the order stage. The case was heard for 1 year. Yesterday was the order date, and till yesterday, the court did not make a finding as to who is the owner of the platform. The court did not make a finding as to whether the assets are owned by WazirX or the users.
Wow.
These are fundamental questions without answering which a case cannot move ahead. But here you have heard the case for 1 year and you are on the order day, and still you don't know what is the answer to these two questions. So that is the difference between, that the two countries, which is why strategically startups choose to use Singapore. Because anything happens with the Indian company, you can always say, boss, we don't have anything in India, everything is there in Singapore. But if you will open the Singapore books, you will find that there is nothing. So WazirX is registered on an address which has more than 250 companies on the same address. And this is for a company which says it had $500 million worth of user assets, which it's claiming as its own. I mean, if I were to think logically, as a businessman, if I have $500 million worth of assets, I would at least have an office address which is in my name and my name alone. Why would I share it with 250 other companies? And WazirX had only two directors.
Hmm.
One was Nischal and the other was a nominee director. So in Singapore, you mandatorily need to have a Singapore person on the board. And that person is director in more than 140 companies. So you can just imagine if you someday meet that person and ask him in which all companies you are director, name them, he will not even be able to name those companies. So that is the way things
These
work
are
in Singapore.
the norm of structuring. Yeah.
Exactly. And the same thing if you were to do in India, India does not allow you to be a director in more than 20 companies. And the moment you go to listed companies or public companies, the number comes down to 10. You cannot be director in more than 10 companies. That shows the difference in how both of these countries work, and how they are structured, and why Singapore companies are used. Now we have understood how Singapore works. After this, WazirX has gone to Panama. I
Is
don't
it-
want to explain. I
Yeah.
don't want to explain about Panama. I think the users will get a picture. Just if anyone is interested, they can just Google Panama Papers and they will understand what Panama is all about.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's very worrying, Sonu. And I'm just reiterating the question, Sonu. Now, do you think there are more entities which are at risk like this by having structures? Is it good for the users? What is your opinion there?
It is definitely not good for the user, Vikram. I will tell you two reasons why. One is that whenever you're dealing with people's money, whether it is a bank, whether it is a financial institution, whether it's a crypto exchange, does not matter. The moment you deal with people's money, you need to be accountable and you need to be honest and transparent in everything that you do. This is the foundation of all financial businesses, irrespective of which part of the world you are in. And in India specifically, if you see, SEBI requires all brokers to be Indian based only. So that is why you see Grow as flipped its structure. So Grow was also previously out of India. Now it has come back to India because SEBI believes these exact same things will be repeated, and which it does not want to repeat. So SEBI is smart that way. Similarly, if you see RBI requires all the banks, all the payment gateways, payment gateways who just handle people's money, enabling them to make transaction. They want payment gateways also to come up and set up their companies in India. So for an Indian user, they are always dealing with an Indian company, not a foreign company at any point of time. So tomorrow, if something goes wrong, you catch hold of the Indian directors, you catch hold of the Indian company. They cannot say that, no, boss, we didn't do anything in India. India company was just taking INR in, INR out. Everything was happening from Singapore. So because regulators have seen how these things happen. So crypto is just a recent, trend from 2018 in India. But Singapore as a country has been there for almost 4 decades now, as a leader in ease of doing business. So these things have happened there a lot of times, and regulators have that experience. That is one thing where for a user it is negative, but that is what regulations fix. So the day you have crypto regulation, this is the first thing you will find they will fix, because this is bad for India as a country also, that you are letting foreign companies to be used to scam your citizens, and you're not doing anything about it. Ultimately, for every user, it is very important to see the crypto exchange which you are using, whether that is fully owned by an Indian company, which is regulated as per Indian laws, and which gives you consumer protection as per Indian laws. If these three things are there, that is the best exchange that you can use. Liquidity, all the other things are always secondary. The first thing is you need to ensure that your principal is safe, because if your principal itself is at risk, there is no point of investing it, because the returns, they are always subject to market risk. But your principal, that is something you can control. So these are the three things that anyone should check before they put their money on any platform.
Yeah, I mean, very, very true. So now, in a way, what also amuses me at times is when we have seen an issue like WazirX, where Indian entity and then Singapore setup, now more setups coming in, what risk the users are. Now, when I extend this and start thinking about, okay, now, but what about international exchanges, right? This
Yes.
risk is completely there, right? I'm still quoting Binance here. Now we are
Hmm.
still, Binance is all free here, even after all these incidents. That is what an international exchange can do. They
Yes.
can do all that shit and then just be not touched.
Right, absolutely. I think that is an inherent risk that comes with using international exchanges also. I think many users, at least in the past 1 month, have seen they have been blocked out of their accounts in some international exchanges. They keep tweeting on Twitter that, my account has been withheld. All of these happen when you don't use proper platforms. So, for example, if people, ultimately they always want options, and few people are ready to take the risk that, it does not matter. I believe the exchange will live on. It's an international exchange. It's a reputed one. It's the largest one. They use various filters to carve out which would be the best exchange. But then again, you are taking a risk. One good thing that is happening is that at least we have a start in India where FIU has started regulating and seeing through these activities. Although WazirX is one thing that slipped through their cracks, but I think it's a good lesson that we need the right regulator. FIU is just not the regulator that can take care of all these activities, because it is clearly outside of their expertise. So either we give it to SEBI, who is best placed to handle crypto markets, because they already have a securities market experience. That would be best. But otherwise, until you get a mature regulator who has seen how people's money need to be handled and how trust is built, you will find there will be exchanges who will keep exploiting users, whether international or the Singapore setup exchanges. But ultimately, for users, always check if you have the best protection under Indian laws and you are okay to use that. That is something that you should always prefer.
Yeah, yeah. I'm with you, Sonu. Frankly, though we are not have don't have regulations yet, crypto entities being a reporting entity in FIU, actually behind the scenes it has mitigated a lot of risks. Okay, or a lot of things could have happened. Even much more things could have happened, which is being averted. But you're right in a way that we need a regulator. We are one of those ecosystems which is a very, very funny and interesting ecosystem. You go talk to banks and everyone, they'll be like, okay, boss, this is regulation. Regulators are very tough. We are coming
Yes,
from a space that, we are literally lost as souls, right? Where we are
absolutely.
asking for, give us a regulator. I think we are at that stage that, we want to do things or take care of things. I think that is very critical. And consumer protection, I think that is one of the first things that it should kick in.
Absolutely, totally agree with you, Vikram. At least, we can wait for regulation, but consumer protection laws is something that should immediately be, at least enforced in India. Because I think that is the least thing that the government can do in terms of, they are collecting humongous amount of taxes also out of this industry. These types of taxes are not seen anywhere. You can, I mean, it would not be wrong to say that alcohol and tobacco companies have much better and reasonable tax structure than the crypto industry. So we are not even at that level. We are not doing anything wrong, but then still we are penalized for just being part of the industry. At least the least the government can do is give some level of protection to the investors. That is a very least task.
Yeah, yeah. I'm with you, Sunan. And it's interesting globally also, a lot of things are happening on regulations. Definitely, we see a lot of news that comes from the US, which we can hope that can have a lot of effect on other countries as well. So I'm with you. Most of the crypto ecosystem, the Indian exchanges, uh, I can actually talk a bit on their behalf, saying that they've all been fighting for or pleading for saying, please regulate me, right? I
Yes,
think our voices should be heard, and if it is heard, I think definitely, there will be no need for taking this risk that the consumer has to take a risk to get a better price or a better product to use an international exchange, right?
absolutely. Yes.
So ideally, let's hope for that, Sonu, and let's also hope a lot of users took your advice and try to take at least few steps forward in say or in getting back their funds, and not just holding back with the worry saying that let it happen when it has to happen. I think this is something you need to do some additional steps to work out that the funds get to you faster. So, with that thought, Sonu, thanks a lot. You've been one of those guys who've been fighting things from the front. This ecosystem actually owes definitely a lot to you, and I hope this issue gets resolved for the good of customers of WazirX very very soon. Any closing thoughts you have, Sonu?
No, absolutely. I think you have concluded it very well, Vikram. Just doing my part by being in the industry, because when I started my journey, I started in the crypto industry. I was part of the same community. So I would not say that I am outside of the community, but ultimately everything that I am doing is for people who have always been there with me throughout these years, who have supported me. And ultimately, as a CA, I've also advised them to use many exchanges, one of them being a particular exchange, which then, also puts a duty on me that I also help them get the right justice, including for all the users, because a lack of regulation should not mean that someone takes advantage of you. Ultimately, at some point, the justice has to be delivered to, everyone who has lost their money.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks. So now I think there are a lot of users who are also asking tax related questions, which I did not take it up. I think this would also mean that the tax interest, because it's the season, and the tax interest has come in again. I think I'll definitely need to have one more session with you for solving a lot of tax related questions users would have. Uh, I think we'll do that sometime quickly. So,
Absolutely. Let's solve those issues also, Vikram.
yeah. Thanks a lot, man. Thanks for joining in
Okay.
today. All the best to
Thank
you.
you,
Bye bye.
Vikram. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Bye bye.